Welcome back everyone to another Derch Nye video. Yesterday I put out my Derch Nye the Sawbar guy, and today is Derch Nye the Pimpin guy. I kind of enjoyed that video and got a lot of good feedback and you guys liked it. So I thought I'd do the same treatment or similar treatment to the Pimpernel, which is one of my favorite guns in the game. Kind of like the Sawbar, not only because it's powerful, but because it's so goddamn interesting. So let's just jump into it, shall we? The Pimpernel is a Maliwan Snider that is a red text unique, and it has a whole load of special effects that we're going to go through. But as a base gun, it's kind of important. The Pimpernel starts off with quite a bit built into it. You have your base damage on your regular shot, obviously. Then you have 50% splash damage and 100% type A critical hit bonus that all snipers have. So, just as a base sniper, Sniders are really good because they have all that. The Pimpernel takes it to a whole nother fucking level. So let's start talking about those levels, because you guys should know how good a Snider is. So the first special effect is when you shoot and an impact happens, a new bullet shoots straight up in the air. Now this new bullet has full base damage and the same 100% type crit A bonus. Now this one might have splash damage, but I've never been able to prove it, so I don't want to say for sure it does. All the other pellets do on this gun. It's weird that this one doesn't. But every time I've tried to see this damage, I've never been able to see splash damage with it. So let's just leave it at that for now. Next is the bloom. So the second pellet that shoots up stops after a certain time, and then it splits into 5. Now these don't go straight like this. They go off in a pattern of 5 on a horizontal plane, not a vertical plane, and they have an arc to them, but for sake of demonstration in this video, it's going to look like this. So all of these have full base damage, 50% splash damage, and 100% type A critical hit bonus. So you can start adding up the math in your head, but I'm going to kind of get to that. That's a lot of extra. And I'll use a dummy and stuff and kind of show you how that all kind of comes together. But you're adding up a lot of damage already with this gun, with no drawback. The base stats are the exact same as a blue Snider, and you get all these unlisted pellets added to it. So let's count these up. So you have your main pellet, you have your second pellet. That goes up, and then you have your 5 splits. So you have a total of 7 pellets for the cost of 1 with no drawbacks, and they're all unlisted. And because they're all unlisted, you get full amp damage on all of these. And because it's a sniper, amp damage comes before critical hit, so critical hit boosts amp damage, and amp damage comes before splash damage, so splash damage boosts amp damage, which is making this one of the ultimate B guns. And then, thirdly, because the B is so fragile, this is a sniper and it's incredibly accurate, so you can use it at a safe distance, meaning it's easier to keep the B up. So, the synergies already on this gun are absolutely fucking insane. And this is why this is one of the most powerful guns in the entire game. Now let's talk about hitting enemies, and here's why this gun isn't as popular as the Herald with a lot of people, because this, to get the full damage out of this, takes a lot more precision than the Herald, which you can kind of just spray and pray. So here I have the shot pattern, and it's odd, I just took this image, I didn't have to rescale this guy at all. I did all the lines first and I popped them in here, figured I was going to have to rescale them, and it worked perfectly. And this is kind of true to scale to the game if you have no points to speed it up. So you want to shoot them right kind of around the belt buckle. A lot of people say shoot them in the dick. You don't actually want to shoot them in the dick because a lot of times that goes below their crit spot. But you want to shoot them right around the belt buckle, and it'll pop up in the middle of their head. And then they'll go out. So what happens here is the first pellet that hits, you will do base damage plus splash. Actually, you know, I'm going to cover all that in a few slides. So, let's talk about the hitting first. So here you have hit A and hit B. Now this distance depends on your velocity of your gun. So accelerate and velocity will increase the distance of A to B. So you want to be careful. So if you put 10 points in velocity, you'll be shooting at his feet. And if he kneels, you won't be able to sweet spot him. Accelerate is nowhere near as aggressive as velocity. So you can put points in accelerate and just, like, I usually use like 6 in accelerate, and then I'm kind of shooting at the dick. If I go full of 10 in velocity, or there I gotta kind of shoot him around the legs or knees, but not quite as bad as velocity. But you have to be aware of that, so that's why I'm showing this in that slide. Now, from B to the C's, that distance also increases with velocity, or the speed of the bullet. And you want to be kind of careful of that, because these shots are hard to land, but you can land them. So you can hit them when they leave the head, and then the bullets keep going and you can hit again. Now, for example, with Maya, when you converge all those enemies, you don't want those going too far, because then they'll be closer and you have a better chance of hitting. The further they go, they become more spread out and less chance of hitting. So that's the other thing to be aware of with velocity, both the velocity and accelerate, the distance from both A to B and B to C. Alright, now that we have that out of the way, let's start talking damage. So, number one, first bullet. There's very few enemies that have a big enough crit spot where you can hit all of these. There are some, like Crystalix or some bosses, but most enemies, you are going to be getting a body shot in your first shot, but it'll be body shot and splash, and, you know, potential slag and mashing element and bone of the ancients, all that stuff. But I'm trying to keep this just at the pimp because it's such a complicated gun. Now, shots 2 through 7, that will explode in his head. So the first one that goes up will cause an impact, and then the 5 that split will impact. Now, those you can get crit and splash damage on all of those. That's fucking big. That you can crit with 6 pellets on a sniper, and you have splash damage. And then 8 through 12, I said lucky chance. You could crit with them. Your chances of critting with them are low, but you can get body and splash mostly if you hit enemies. Your chances of hitting all 5 are slim, but on bigger enemies, like Ultimate Badass Loaders, you can actually pop this through their crit spot, and then these will bloom out and still hit him because he's so big. Same with like Constructors or Oh My God, What the Hell, or some of those bigger enemies. You can land all of these on one enemy, but typically on most enemies you'll be hitting 1 through 7 on the enemy, and 2 through 7 you have the potential to crit with. And then the other ones are kind of AoE damage that can hit enemies around you. Now in normal mode, this gun is so OP that you can miss an enemy and like your 8 through 12 could hit them and just one of them can kill that enemy because this gun is so powerful. Which is insanely amusing. Now let's talk about the damage of all this. So number 1 would be base damage plus base damage times 50% for the splash. Numbers 2 through 7 would be base damage times 2 for the critical hit, times 2 for the sniper bonus, plus base damage times 50%, and you'd get this for 6 pellets. So all that together is base damage times 28.5. That's a shit ton. That's 2,850% increase just by hitting an enemy. That's no skills, no slag, no matching element, no Bone of the Ancients, no B. you get a 2,850% increase just for shooting the gun accurately. That is fucking nuts. And that's why this gun is so fucking good. Now, let's bring Slag and matching elements into it. So, with matching elements and Slag, it is base damage times 149 times, or 149.625. That's 1,490. Wait, gotta move forward 2 decimals. 14,962.5% increase. Yeah, big time here. That's, again, no skills, no class mod, no relic, none of that stuff. That is just shooting without any skills, hitting a sweet spot with a slag and a matching element. That's a ton of fucking damage. And this is why I love the Pimpernel. It's a gun that you have to learn, but when you learn how to use it and get good with it, the damage potential is through the fucking roof, and it rewards good play. And I love that. So the next slide here, sorry I got a little out of order because I don't know why this thing did that. Now we're going to move on to talking about Boar, because everyone loves Boar with the Pimpernel for obvious reasons. So how this works with Boar, because the Pimp auto bores, or it can auto bore. Now, pellets 2 through 7, because you start inside of a hitbox and you're moving up, gain 100% damage because you already created one bore by hitting and moving up. Next, after those 2 through 7 getting bore, 8 through 12 here gain bore again. So when bore first hits, it's 100%, so basic damage times 2. 1 plus 100%. Then when the ones that leave, that's another bore, which brings them to 100% twice, or times 4. Now, we already saw the crazy damage it gets up to. Imagine now that that 2 through 7 gets 100% increase and the other ones go up again. So just with that one skill alone, you are vastly increasing the amount of damage that this gun does just on a single target. And we're not even talking yet how it works spreading out and hitting multiple targets, or the continuation and the reblooming. This is just the straight damage increase of Boar, which is, again, pretty utterly insane. Now, the other part about it with Boar is when Boar hits an enemy. So I have my first Marauder here, and I shoot him, it pops up, it blooms out, but Boar creates, it doesn't keep traveling like the card says, it actually creates a second pellet. And because it creates a new pellet, it can get the effect again. So I can shoot through both of these guys and get a bloom on both of them if I line them up perfectly. Which is hard to do, but you can see where the damage is insane. And like I talked on the last one, where you go up and you get double damage, and then you get double damage again for 4 times damage. On this next one, it's even more insane because you have double damage from this leaving here. Then when you go out, you have 4 times damage. And then if they hit with the ones that go out there, it's 8 times damage. What the fuck? This is why this is the ultimate Boar gun on like Saturn, Bunker, Hyperius. Just any kind of Boar, the Pimpernel is utterly insane for the amount of damage it can start kicking out. But not only that, it'll continue traveling through this guy, and let's say there's no other enemies to hit, it'll hit a wall or the ground, and then bloom again, and if those blooms go out and hit anything, again, they are insanely powerful at this point, and can definitely kill or seriously injure enemies. So this is why this gun is so good with Boar, between the insane damage going up and the amount, or the possibility of getting multiple blooms off, which, again, is fucking nuts. Now, if we change this to the other boar family skills, like nth degree and chain reaction, you don't get the damage increase, but it seeks out enemies, which almost makes it a little bit better, because it's honestly really hard to line up multiple perfect boars and bloom them in a critical hit spot and all that stuff. With overlapping hitboxes, we'll talk about that later, it's better. But just like mobbing with enemies, nth degree and chain reaction will actually seek out enemies for this to happen. Now, nth degree is always on, but it's only every so many hits, but the Pimpernel hits so many times that you can almost proc it on every pimp shot. Where chain reaction, if you boost it especially, your chances of bouncing around to enemies and blooming like crazy are utterly insane. So on this one, it'll create a new pellet and it'll seek out an enemy and go and hit them. The chances of it blooming perfectly on their head, like I show here, is pretty low. But the amount of pellets, like with Maya, you converge them, you slag them all, and you just have blooms all over the place. Now, some people have said if a bloom procs chain reaction, it can recreate a bloom. I have never seen that happen definitively to know that that can happen or not. A lot of people have said so, and I just want to say I'm not 100% on that. I've tried it on the target dummy with boar, and I've never quite seen it work that well, so I'm a little iffy on that. I think it's just the main pellet and the second pellet that can recreate the bloom, as far as I'm pretty sure on. As far as the 5 bloom pellets, I do not know if they can recreate a bloom on their own. But the potential for that happening is there. But either way, with or without that, this thing with your boar family skills with nth degree chain reaction and boar utterly mows down groups of enemies so effortlessly. Less effort than it took for me to say effortlessly. I can't say that word. I did not know that. So, I think that's clear as mud. Next, I want to talk about different sized enemies. So, I talked about when you usually want to shoot that guy around the belt buckle to hit him in the head. But what often confuses people is a lot of enemies are not the same size. So, if you focus on where to shoot the enemy, you're going to have a hard time with a pimp, because you're going to keep shooting enemies too low. And I even do this. I call it out, actually, in my videos. I'll be like, shooting a bunch of bandits and marauders, and they're all the same size. And then, like, a boss, like in Southpaw, like, I'll be shooting at Oni. I'm like, oh, why am I shooting him at the same spot I'm shooting them? I'm shooting him too low. So that's why I always say memorize the distance. I've done sweet spot videos before where I say shoot walls, because you'll see the 2 impacts on the wall of the 2 pellets hitting. And you want to just memorize that distance. So instead of shooting the Goliath and belt buckle like the Marauder and shooting him below the head, what you want to do is, kind of shoot him up higher, maybe around his chest, and that will bounce up and hit his head. So location is less important than distance. And there's a lot of old school thought with the Pimpernel of people trying to collect all the sweet spots and telling everybody where to shoot the enemies. But if an enemy's kneeling, it's different if he's standing, and if he's waddling, it's different. And, they have that injured animation where they kind of slump over, and that changes it. It's much more important to know the distance that it raises up than try to memorize a billion different sweet spots. Because there are just too many different sweet spots. Just on a Marauder, you have your normal sweet spot, you have a running sweet spot, you have an injured sweet spot, you have a crouching sweet spot. And then you have a staggered sweet spot. That's 5 different ones to know on one enemy. Then you add in Goliaths, Nomads, Midgets, Skags, Spider Ants of all the different sizes and kinds of Spider Ants, and then the mini bosses and badasses and so on and so on. It's way too much to try to memorize, so don't try to memorize sweet spots per enemy per animation. Just try to memorize the distance that you need to shoot below the critical hit spot. Now, one thing that helps with this too, what I say, is just shoot walls and look at the bullet decals. Do it from different distances to help your depth perception in the game. So, be really close to the wall, back up, and then be insanely far where you have to scope in. and that'll help you in combat. And if you really want to get good with the pimp, just hang out in Sanctuary and shoot walls for like an hour. Maybe not an hour, that's maybe overkill, but 20-30 minutes. Just fucking shoot every wall that takes a bullet decal. Do it while jumping, do it while running, do it while standing still and ADSing, do it while hip firing, do it from different distances. Just ingrain that distance into your skull, and that's how you will get really good with the pimp. So next, I want to talk about overlapping hitboxes, because this is where people get really interested with like bore and all that stuff, and one-shotting enemies, because people will hear bore proc like, why didn't it blow up like Bunker does? Well, if you bore through an enemy and you hit another enemy, you get that 100% increase, but when you hit an overlapping hitbox, that's when shit goes insane. So here I have our friendly Marauder riding our Goliath, because it's funny. I'm pulling some Norm McDonald's here. And what you want to do with the Pimpernel to properly hit that, you don't want to hit the first bullet where they overlap. You want to hit the bloom where they overlap, because that will cause everything to just kind of explode. In my bore video, I explained overlapping hitboxes, that the best we can tell, when you have an overlapping hitbox in bore or chain reaction or nth degree, what's going on in there is every pixel that it moves through, it switches off hitboxes. So it's enemy A, enemy B, enemy A, enemy B, enemy A, enemy B. With as many frames as it takes to leave that hitbox, bore will proc and create new pellets and new blooms, and everything will blow the fuck up. With a normal gun, it would just be create a new bullet, create a new bullet, create a new bullet. But because it's 100% on every bullet, it gets insane fast. So, bullet A, let's say, is doing 100 damage, 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200, 6400. You can see how big that's getting fast. But when you add the Pimpernel's like inflating numbers that we covered earlier in this video, that 100, 200, 400 gets way bigger, faster, and creates all these pellets and just blows the fuck out of everything. And that's why creating all those pellets will often like crash lower grade hardware. So if that makes sense. So when you're trying to bore with the Pimpernel, or chain reaction Saturn or Bunker, you want to shoot below the overlapping hitbox, which is usually the turret. And what you want to do with them is, there's a turret that overlaps the body. You want to shoot right where the turret, right below where the turret touches the body, unless it's going sideways, and right inside of that, because that's where it's overlapping. And you want to get that bloom right in the overlap. So that is the mechanics of a Pimpernel. I hope I covered everything, and I hope it was clear enough and concise enough where you guys can get it. This is obviously one of my favorite guns, and I love it for so many reasons. If you guys have further questions on it, please ask. I will do my best to answer. It is a very complicated thing, but I love like digging into these things. I find that exciting. So, as always, if you have not yet subscribed, please do so. I appreciate that. And if you are not following me on Facebook and Twitter, do that as well, because I dig it when you guys follow me there. So, see you all later. Thanks for watching. Bye.